Hi, YouTube. What's up? My name is Eli. I am a non-binary trans guy. I was assigned female at birth. I've been on hormone replacement therapy, that is testosterone, for approximately 4 years now. Coming on 4 years. Oh my god! And I've been documenting my journey with gender with these little videos, and I got big news. I have a date for my top surgery. This is huge. This is so fucking huge. I know the date that my operation is going to be. I'm going to have a bilateral mastectomy with 3 nipple grafts on the 13th of July. July. We're in May. I am having surgery in the second week of July. I mean, this is so big, and I am so happy. Even though happy doesn't really begin to describe it, I'm wowed. I am. Whew. Okay, so I should go through it. Like, is this thing recording? Yeah, it's recording. I'm out of my head, as you can quite clearly see. I had been to see 3 surgeons in Israel and 2 surgeons in Barcelona. I still have appointments to see 2 more surgeons, even though I do have the feeling that I've chosen my surgeon and that I'm happy with the choice. I'm going to go with Tintoré from Tintoré Brazo Clinic, and they're right here in Barcelona. The cost of the surgery is like 6,500, so I'm 500 euros short. Link to the GoFundMe in the description if you want to help, and you can. I would really appreciate it. I have 2 months to raise 500 euros. It'll be okay. And I chose this surgeon because I have seen bad results of both him and the other surgeon in Barcelona, whose name is Dr. Musolas. And Dr. Tintoré from Tintoré Brazo, the good results and the bad results, I mean, they weren't that far apart. He seems to have quite a standard. And the one, I have a cat, she's going to be coming in and out of the room the entire video, because she's a cat. There is nothing no one can ever do about that. Okay, so Tintoré, his good results are not as amazing, and his bad results are not as bad. So, cat, please don't. This is no. You can't fuck with the camera. Okay, so Musolas, his bad results are terrible, and his good results are great. When I went to see Musolas, he would not show me any results apart from the ones that were already available online. And I have to say that was a bit of a deal breaker, because it seems that there is something about the rest of his results that he really doesn't want me to see. I mean, that's the way I felt. And you want to go outside? No, you just want attention. And when I went to see Tintoré in Tintoré Brazo, they were kind of forgetful about showing me results. It seemed like the last thing on their mind. They were like, yeah, but let's talk about pre-op and post-op. And I'm like, that's great if I'm having the surgery with you guys, but until I know that I'm having, can I see some fucking results, please? And I ended up getting the opportunity to see some, and I decided, and I really want straight line scars. I really don't want the curve up. I want the smallest nipples one could possibly make out of the areola that I have right now. I don't really care about nipple sensation. I don't care. I just don't care. I want them small. And since I have a bit of a skin fold, the only technique that's really viable for me is going to be double mastectomy. the classic, just take the whole thing off, sew it shut, place the nipple, never have full nipple sensation again. Although some claim to have that sensation come back. There's not a medical basis for this to happen, but it has evidently happened for some people. So who cares? And then I basically called them and I was like, okay, I want a surgery date, and I thought it was gonna be like this huge procedure, and they were like, okay, when? And I was dumbfounded, and I said, can I have it in the middle of July so I can take August off? Living in Barcelona, taking August off is the most natural thing that a person can do. Most of these guys go out of town anyway. I mean, my boss is going to be away for 2 whole months in Ibiza, so it seemed like the right time to do it. And my birthday is in August, and I want to do this birthday when I've already had top surgery. It's huge to me to think that on my 35th birthday I will be post-op. So I really want this to happen in the summer. Oh, this got a lot more emotional than I thought. Okay, let's talk about some other stuff. So I got the surgery date that I wanted, and they sent me some prep stuff like the pruebas. How do you say pruebas? The tests that they want me to do, like medical tests. They want to see a blood test. They want to see a chest X-ray. They want to see ecografia. I think ecografia is ultrasound of the mama, is the breast. And what else? I also have a mammografia, which is kind of I think it's an ultrasound, but it's a special one that's designed to detect cancerous growths in breasts, which I have already from Israel. I think that one's good for a year. The rest of them I have to have quite updated. And then cardiomyografia, which is basically a heart test that just to make sure that your heart can take anesthesia and surgery and the rest of it, which I'm sure mine does. I'm sure my heart is in an okay condition. And then a COVID test, and that's it. You're good to go. So I called the hospital, and I booked dates for all of these, and then I was just sitting there this is huge. I don't even know what I'm feeling about how big this is. And I really like to talk about what happens in therapy for me, because I think it's very efficient, and I think that a lot of people go through the same thing. So I discussed this with my therapist. I told her, well, indirectly, I mean, we got to it from another thing. I had my monthly session with my therapist at the beginning of the week, and I already knew I had my surgery date, and I was there, and I told her, many things have happened to me recently, most of which extremely exhilarating, like the surgery date. And I've also been on a date with someone that I kind of like, even though I don't think that's going anywhere. But it was a beautiful night, and ever since then I wake up in the mornings from terrible nightmares, and I have this feeling of immense sadness that is threatening to crush me if I don't distract myself, and I feel like I could cry and just melt into a puddle on the floor, which sounds better in Hebrew, but the therapy is in Spanish. Anyways, I described to my therapist that I have this sensation that some immense and terrible loss has happened, and I have no idea what it is. And my therapist, she's very good. She looked at me for a while, and she was like, okay, if you don't know what it is, and where do you feel it? And I was like, the sides of my mouth. I don't ever know what to do with this. Where in your body do you feel the feeling that you feel kind of approach? It's just not the most useful thing for me. But anyways, we went a few more rounds with that. Like we tried different hypotheses, and then it suddenly came to me that no, wait, it wasn't like that. It was actually my therapist's guess. So she looks at me and she says, "Is it possible, in the light of you having top surgery, that you are mourning the loss of your femininity?" And I was quite struck by this. I mean, she undeniably had a point. I mean, she said it and I felt it and it resonated with me. And it sounded quite close to the truth. So I took a moment to dig into it, and what came up is that I have the strong sensation that my mother really wanted a girl. You know, she wanted a little girl, and I think she wanted me to be a feminist. You know, she wanted me to continue her brand of really frontier line feminism. I mean, my mother supported 7 people at a certain period of her life, being a seamstress, and she dropped out of university because she got pregnant in the first year, and she started her own business, and my father and my siblings' father, I mean, both her ex-husbands, were not big contributors. And the fact, I mean, my father was an unemployed alcoholic who basically went AWOL at a certain point. And she did all this by herself, and she's a magnificent woman, and I admire her and her feminism. And when I was born, I was named after Avital Sharansky, which, if you don't know who Avital Sharansky is, that's fine. Don't bother looking it up. She's an activist whose greatest achievement in my mother's eyes was getting her husband, Natan Sharansky, released from the Soviet jail where he spent 13 years for some made-up reason. And when I was born, my mother, well, this is what the story says, right? That my mother heard about Avital Sharansky, and she says, "I'm going to name my daughter Avital because I want my daughter to be as strong a woman as this one was." And then she got me, you know? And I always felt that me transitioning into male is kind of treacherous, like treason, like not what I was supposed to do. Like there was an expectation of me to be a feminist woman, which is unfulfilled. And my mother had kind of a love-hate relationship with my masculinity as I was growing up. I mean, she loved my doing drag. She really encouraged it. She loved to see me, you know, in a kind of dandy outfits that I would do when I was in my early 20s. I think it was very graceful, and that's why she liked it. I would put on a fedora, and I would put on like a nice button-down shirt, and I would have this very slicked early 20s like cabaret chic, and she thought that was very beautiful, and she encouraged that. And she's always had a bit of queer in her, though not so much. And then as I got rougher and rougher around the edges, she would say something like, "Why do you provoke people?" Or she wouldn't get it, basically. She didn't, she accepted me being a masculine woman, but it was, to her, it was never like a blessing or a good thing or a celebrated thing, right? I mean, she didn't give me that much shit about it. She's a good woman, but she wasn't delighted about it either. And I saw in my partners when I brought them home, which were usually a little bit more feminine than I was, her joy at having a little girl. I think she really wanted a little girl, you know? my sister had been the perfect little girl, but she left the nest quite quickly, and I was never that. Like, I let her put me in dresses up to a certain age, but I was never the one to celebrate that with her, and I think she really wanted that. And I need to, on the one hand, mourn that, the expectations I did not fulfill on my mother's side. And on the other hand, there is this feminism thing, right? Which is such a big deal for a lot of trans guys. Like, a lot of us, before we transition non-binary or binary, we have this thing where we're like not the most classical woman, and a lot of us are like hardcore feminists. I definitely was, I still am. And at a certain point, it really felt like the world was divided between us and them, with men being on the other side of the fence. And that's the point where my therapist, God bless her sweetheart, she really has, it seems, I don't want to say agenda because it's not political. I think she has a bit of a life's mission. You could call it a dharma, like this is her responsibility in life, or this is her duty in life. I feel that to her, being transgender is a gift to the world, in that we are here to teach humanity that gender is really not something you can divide into male and female, that it's a continuum, or that it's a spectrum, or that it's a multicolor, multi-dimensional rainbow of options, and that we are diverse is the bottom line. That transgender is the evidence of diversity in gender and humankind, And this is something that my therapists believe, not something that I believe. I don't think we are sent. I don't think we have to teach. I don't think we have a message. We just are, But I don't mind her feeling that way, because of all the good she's done to a lot of transgender people that she's taking care of, and because her vision, how it interprets us, is very positive. So, to her, a feminism that does not include the diversity that is being trans, and that doesn't see trans as like a good thing, which basically shows that rigid distinctions are bullshit, and that there are too many options under the sun to ever like happily put people into categories. I lost the beginning of that sentence. Anyways, I think you get what I'm saying. So my therapist believes that being transgender is evidence that feminism needs to move on, adapt, and accept gender diversity. And while I don't necessarily feel that myself, I think it's a beautiful way to look at it. And the closest I can come to it is that maybe the two categories that we're used to think of in gender, which can be neatly divided into one column and then the other, can be represented in a table, right? Like a two-dimensional table. Like there's an up and there's a side, And if you've ever done a little bit of databasing, you know that two-dimensional things can exist on paper, but once you have kind of a more elaborate database, you can have more dimensions. So you can have, for example, depth, you can have time, you can have a lot of other dimensions. You can actually have as many dimensions to a table as the operating system is capable of calculating. So the only thing limiting diversity and the depth of the number of dimensions is the capacity of that system to calculate. And then my therapist said, you know what, that's a very good metaphor for gender. It's not a two-dimensional table, it's a multi-dimensional table. And what you are, doesn't neatly fit into any of those categories because you have more dimensions, and because once you translate from a multi-dimensional table to a two-dimensional table, you just lose knowledge in the sense of, okay, let's do this really quickly, and then I'm going to shut up about it because I'm sure nobody cares. Imagine that you have a table that has like length and width. So something can be 5 centimeters long and 3 centimeters wide. And then that's the entire description of that object, which can be, I don't know, a pencil, whatever. And then, or a cube. Or not a cube, but like a line. And then on the other hand, you can describe the same object with depth. So now it has 3 dimensions. So it has length, width, and depth. And then you can also add a 4th dimension, which is time. So it's length, width, depth at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, right? So this object you have now described using 4 parameters. If you need to describe it in the 2 parameters of the original table, what are you going to do with the depth and the time? So there's a lot of ways to solve it, but you always end up losing information. Or using a 2-column table in a very cumbersome way because it wasn't meant to hold this much information, which is basically what we're doing with male and female categories right now. Like, whenever you have male and female categories and you start saying demi-boy, gender fluid, demisexual, sabio, blah, 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 trans, lesbian, people feel that that's a bunch of gibberish because it's a very cumbersome way, it's a very ungraceful, very information-loaded, slow, difficult, explanation requiring way to describe something that simply has a lot more dimensions than these 2 categories, right? Because people who use these words not only use them to describe their gender, they're also using them to describe a myriad of other sensations which they feel have to do with this, which you can kind of count as dimensions. And that's it. I'm stopping here. I'm sure nobody cares. I'm sure this was a boring ass rant and like whatever. So we talked about that, and I felt immensely relieved because if the categories of male and female are not actually a good way to conceptualize humanity, then I don't have to feel bad about my relationship with them, you know? I don't have to feel bad about not ever being a woman and turning into a man if man and woman are just actually really inaccurate ways to look at human diversity. And that feminism should actually include this if we wanted to keep being relevant. So that was important. And then the second thing, which was extremely important, was we started talking about sex. And I'm going to give a content warning now. If you don't want to hear explicit terminology for female anatomy, then maybe pause the video, maybe not watch the rest of it, because I do want to talk about privates, you know. So I'm going to start now. So if you're not into bottom talk, then thank you for watching and have a good one, and we'll see you in the next one. Okay. We clear? Okay, let's go. So for me, is this still recording? Yeah, it's still recording. Okay, so for me, there's I have this very strange sensation of like, I feel very uncomfortable being intimate with people as long as I see myself as a guy with a female anatomy. And I don't really want to use explicit terms because this is the internet and I don't know what child is going to be watching me, you know, and I don't want to be inhospitable, but for example, penetration, right? I mean, it's an intimate act that I really enjoy in my private life, and I would like to keep enjoying, but I have to admit it makes me extremely dysphoric, because it kind of makes me feel like a woman, and that's not something that I want to feel, especially not when I'm being intimate with someone. And I have a hard time believing that the other person doesn't view me as a woman as we are having that kind of intimacy. And that ties into the anterior conversation, using the link that if the categories of male and female are a bad way to view human diversity, and what I am simply has a lot more dimensions than these two categories can hold, then I don't have to feel like a guy with a pussy. And I don't have to feel like a woman if I'm doing penetration, And I'm not here to talk about my sexual preferences or my sexual practices. And if anybody asks me about it, I'm going to refrain from answering, so please don't. But it is important to me to transmit like the feeling that whatever it is and however it is that you like to have your sexual life, and whatever your sexual practices are, they don't determine your gender identity. Now, it's really easy to say it, but in practice we do have these rigid ways of thought, cis heteronormative ways of thought about like people with penises are men and they penetrate, and people with vaginas are female and they are penetrated, and there's kind of like a dominance or a power hierarchy there, right? And that's definitely something that's stopped me from having sexual relationships with men, because it's not an environment where I feel that I exist. To put it one way, it's like this is not part of my life. And if ever I find myself with a man or a woman who thinks that this is part of life, then I cannot sleep with them. To me, it's just very obvious that this is not possible. And I still need to throw this around in my head quite a lot, but the idea that none of that means anything, knowing that the categories of male and female, or man and woman, are just not good for the use we're putting them to, really takes a huge weight off of it. Because as much as you can fantasize that, yes, I'm having sex with this genitalia, but in my head it's something else. No, Chappie, just leave the camera alone. She doesn't like it when I tell her what to do. So if you can in your head transform what you have into maybe something that would make you like less dysphoric, that's great for you. For me, it's not an option, and I hate feeling like I have to pretend in order to enjoy sex. So to me, it's very important to come to peace with the anatomy that I do have, having been like born with completely female anatomy, and I've not had bottom surgery, and I'm not going to, because I don't have bottom dysphoria, and we can talk about it another day. Huge thing. Huge thing. Okay, I'm gonna finish this here. It's too long anyway. Thank you for watching, and oh my god, I have a top surgery date, so link in the description to the GoFundMe below. Please help me, and this is amazing. This is too good to be true. Thank